Political executive. In this module, you will learn about the executive and its role and functions in a democracy. In a democracy, while the legislature decides on the laws and policies to govern the country, it is the executive which actually executes and implements these policies. Thus, the government of a country constitutes the political executive of the country. In a democratic country, there are two categories of executives: the political executive and the permanent executive. While the political executive comprises the political leaders who have decision-making authority, the civil servants constitute the permanent executive. The permanent executive usually has expertise in a particular field, and they aid and advise the political executive in matters of governance. Despite the expertise and knowledge of the permanent executive, it is the political executive that takes major decisions. This is because the minister is answerable to the people of the country as he is elected by them. A major distinction between the political and permanent executive is that while the political executive remains in power as long as they enjoy majority support in the Lok Sabha, the permanent executive remains the same regardless of the government in power. The executive in India at the union level consists of the President, the Vice President, and Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President. The Prime Minister of India is the leader of the majority party or the coalition of parties in the Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President, and on his advice, the President appoints other ministers. The ministers who are a part of the government are collectively referred to as Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers comprises three categories of ministers: the Cabinet Ministers, Ministers of State with independent charge, and Ministers of State. Cabinet Ministers are the most important members of the Council of Ministers. They are the top-level leaders who hold important portfolios. They are the key decision-making body in the Council. Ministers of State with independent charge are usually in charge of smaller ministries. Ministers of State are attached to the Cabinet. They assist the Cabinet in decision-making. As the head of the government, the Prime Minister is responsible for distribution of work of the government to various ministries and offices. He chairs the Cabinet meetings and takes the final decision in case of dispute between different departments. However, in the era of coalition politics, we find that the power of the Prime Minister is somewhat constrained. The PM has to accommodate diverse groups and parties who form the coalition government. Union executive in India also comprises the President who heads the state. The President of India is the nominal head who is elected indirectly by the members of the Parliament and members of the state legislative assemblies. The President performs a number of functions. All government activities are carried out in the name of the President. All major appointments like that of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, are made in his name. The President is also the Supreme Commander of the Indian Defence Forces. However, the President exercises these powers only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Thus, the real national executive power is centered in the Council of Ministers led by the Prime Minister of India. Let's recall what we have learned. In a democracy, the executive executes or implements the policies decided on by the legislature. In a democratic country, there are two categories of executive: the political executive and the permanent executive. Political executive comprises the political leaders who have decision-making authority, and the civil servant constitutes the permanent executive. The permanent executive usually has expertise in a particular field, and they aid and advise the political executive in matters of governance. Executive in India at the union level consists of the President, the Vice President, and Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head. The Prime Minister of India is the leader of the majority party or the coalition parties in the Lok Sabha and is appointed by the President. The Council of Ministers comprises three categories of ministers: the Cabinet Ministers, Ministers of State with independent charge, and Ministers of State. In a parliamentary system, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Parliament. The Prime Minister is the head of the government and coordinates the work of different departments. The Prime Minister also assigns portfolios to different ministers and has the power to dismiss them. Coalition politics has put constraints on the powers of the Prime Minister. The President of India is elected indirectly by the people. He is the nominal head and performs all functions on the advice of the Council of Ministers.